Thinking right, being positive. We shouldn't apologize to ourselves. A sense of the dignity of life and the supremacy of the soul should keep us strong and positive. We should be too big for that little habit of making excuses. Self-depreciation never won a single battle of life. It has, on the contrary, killed ambition, weakened the will, and incapacitated thousands of men from noble work. Apology is weakness on parade. Avoid it. Observe some man who comes toward you, walking with short, jerky steps. His dress is really careless. The corners of his mouth turned down, keeping well to one side of the sidewalk. As he passes, he gives you a hasty, frightened glance which shows you unmistakably despair, discouragement, and failure. The man's whole life probably has been negative in its character and outlook. The daily and perhaps hourly streams of false suggestions poured into his mind have at last overwhelmed him, and his life closes in an eclipse. Many people who are tormented by fear and are timid do not realize what a flood of negative thoughts daily affect them. They hem themselves in with suggestions of limitations, incapacity, and unworthiness. They constantly think not of how they will succeed, but how they'll surely fail. When Washington Irving was asked to preside at a public dinner for Charles Dickens upon his visit to America, he hesitated and said he would surely fail. Yeah, well, it was pointed out to him that he was really the man to be the toastmaster for that function. And at last he was prevailed upon to accept. But to many friends he repeated his fear that he would fail. The night came, and before a brilliant gathering, Irving arose to speak. He made an excellent beginning, but then suddenly stopped and brought his remarks to a close. As he sat down, he whispered to a friend on his left, "There, I told you I would fail, and I did." In developing the habit of positive thinking, of seeing only the best in yourself and others, of regarding yourself as capable of great things, it's good to bear in mind that our thoughts really make us what we are. What you did yesterday makes you what you are today. And what you do today determines what you'll be tomorrow. Suppose you put these practical questions to yourself. Does negative thinking pay? Is it desirable for me to encourage thoughts in my mind that break down, hinder, or incapacitate me from good work? Do I want negative thoughts that inevitably bring discontent, unhappiness, and ultimate failure? Your answer will be, of course, that you don't want them. But such thoughts work insidiously and will find an entrance into your mind if you're not extremely vigilant. The surest way to keep them out, however, is to fill the mind completely with vital positive thoughts, to think constantly of yourself as a person of unlimited possibilities, growing daily in mental and spiritual power, equipped for great things, a necessary part of God's glorious creation, and moving forward to a triumphant and immortal destiny. It's difficult to construct positive thoughts out of the poor stuff from which dreams are made. People should devote themselves particularly to the practical things of life. Some people learn this lesson all too late, for, as Thoreau says, youth gets together the materials for a bridge to the moon, and maturity uses them to build a woodshed. The habit of positive thinking, when firmly established, becomes a source of attraction. Good thoughts soon become great thoughts, and the mature mind attempts even the impossible. The power of a single thought at the beginning of a day cannot be overestimated. It can change despondency into hope, and fear into courage. It can nerve the arm for great and noble deeds. It can strengthen a weak and timid character into a whole person. It's possible for it to set in motion an influence that will reach the ends of the world. The importance of positive thinking is its effect upon doing right for your life. How many disastrous mistakes are made for lack of proper thought? How many of life's failures are due to a careless and unwise selection of a business or a profession? It was Sidney Smith who said, if we represent the occupations of life by holes in a table, some round, some square, some oblong, and persons by bits of wood of like shape, we shall generally find that the triangular person has gotten into the square hole, the oblong person into the triangular hole, where the square person has squeezed himself into the round hole. But meditation, too, is an essential part of positive thinking. A writer said that there was not much real honest thinking done in the world, but I'm not so inclined to agree with him. Much of the thinking is honest enough, but it's badly organized and even more badly applied. We must learn to brood more over our thoughts, to dwell long and intently upon ideas that seem dark and obscure, to fashion patiently intricate links of truth into the chains of a powerful argument. In his pursuit of positive thinking, the student should learn the art of definition. Thoughts fully matured in the mind are seen to be there in so many words. What do our thoughts or words really mean? The first step is to define them, and next, to consider their truth. The habit of constant and searching reflected, recommended by Gladstone, is what more than anything else produces right thinking. The habit of constant and searching reflection, recommended by Gladstone, is what more than anything else produces right thinking. I wish to congratulate you, Mr. Webster, said a young admirer, upon your wonderful impromptu effort of today. Impromptu! Exclaimed the great orator. My young friend, I have been thinking out that speech for over 6 months. How long does it take to prepare a sermon? Someone asked one of the great reverends in the country. If you mean to write the manuscript, then a day might suffice. But if you mean to think a sermon, then it might be 10 years. It's good sometimes to think out loud when you're alone, in order to bring your thoughts out into concrete form. There is the advantage of being definite, of getting an impression of the sound of the words, and of making them real. Thoughts, when uttered, take on a life, reality, and a character they didn't have before. They can be better considered, analyzed, and assigned to their proper duty, or they can be thrown in the garbage. The very act of giving expression to our thoughts illuminates and invests them with new power and significance. An excellent way to furnish the mind with material for positive thinking is to commit to memory some of the sayings of great men and to ponder them at leisure. This helps you establish a standard of truth, and at the same time furnishes the mind with many nourishing and useful thoughts. Here are some examples. The confidence which we have in ourselves gives birth to much of that which we have in others. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Alfred Lord Tennyson. They who have once been very foolish will at no other time be very wise. Nothing is said nowadays that has not been said before. They must necessarily fear many, whom many fear. Courage in danger is half the battle. The multitude is always in the wrong. Thought once awakened does not again slumber. Second thoughts, they say, are best. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyages of their life are bound in shallows and miseries. We should not let others do our thinking for us. Our individuality is too precious to be so sacrificed. Too many persons are like the chief of the South Sea Islands described by Sir John Lubbock. Wishing to question him, Sir John first bountifully fed him, whereupon he fell into slumber. When awakened, he simply said, "Ideas make me sleepy." There are men who dislike thinking for themselves. It's just too much work. It makes them drowsy, and after all, what's the use of it? Some men lack the true spirit of independence and courage. They're not in line. Let it be said with pity for great work, leadership, and noble success. Positive thinking gives tone and vigor to a physical man, purifies and enlarges his mental world, and leads him into spiritual realization. While our thoughts are building body and character, they are also forming human destiny. What a man thinks in his spirit in the world, that he does after his departure from the world when he becomes a spirit. To think that our thoughts compromise the city of man's soul should awaken us with a determination not to waste this precious substance in reckless. A person who thinks positively has reason to feel proud of themselves, and they walk with a magic in their eye. There is no weakness, no timidness, no hesitation, since to them right is might. They have learned to make their thoughts selective. They make good, and they take the good and reject the bad. They know how to fix each thought into its proper place, make correct inferences, and form well-considered judgments. This clear and positive thinking is constructive in its character. It builds new power and discloses ever-widening fields of usefulness. Wrong or negative thinking is destructive. It produces nothing but paralysis, fear, hopelessness, and heart-rending failure. Positive thinking means cheerful thinking. It means that a person is an intellectual optimist who sees nothing but good in himself and those about him. His thought goes out to clarify and brighten the lives of other men. Let Robert Louis Stevenson inspire discouraged men to similar heroism, propped up in bed for weeks at a time and racked by pain. Not a weak or negative thought escaped his lips, but his glorious mind framed this: a happy man or woman is a better thing to find than a 5-pound note. He or she is a radiating focus of goodwill, and their entrance into a room as though another candle has been lighted. We need not care whether they could prove the 47th proposition. They do a better thing than that. They practically demonstrate the great theorem of the inevitability of life. When a difficult question came to Webster, he would say, "Let me sleep on it." He must give his thought time to mature. Being deliberate and being patient in meditation played a prominent part in the building of his mind. How would a man exclude negative thoughts from his life? Certainly by not affirming such sentences as, "I have no fear," "I am not weak," "I do not lack ability," "I am not a failure." Remembering that only positive thoughts are constructive, they will avoid even the use of negative symbols as weak, fear, lack, failure. That person will say rather, "I am self-confident, I am strong, I am able, I am a success." These affirmations will be made both silently and out loud, always with deep conviction and earnestness. Let the student remember, however, that these affirmations must be confirmed by actual performance. A man could sit in his office chair and continually affirm that he was a success, and nothing but success, until he fell over from heart failure. When you say, "I'm courageous," you must demonstrate it in your daily life. You may say, "I am hopeful, powerful, buoyant, cheerful," but if you then proceed to sit down in a corner by yourself and moan about your fate, you're simply deluding yourself. It's not sufficient that you believe what you perform. You must be it, live it, and act it. Every person who aspires to positive thinking should shut the door in his mind against fear thought and negative thoughts, as they would against their most bitter enemy. Negative thought works in its way cunningly, by plausible excuse and subterfuge, until it holds a person in its death-like grip. It subdues, discourages, weakens, intimidated, and at last brands its victim a failure and an outcast. To harbor it in one's mind is to entertain an enemy. Positive thinking means that which constructs, strengthens, and ennobles. It means better manhood, the courage to do and to dare, and the heroism of mighty effort. It knows no limitation, but reaches out daily for new conquests. It is a power unto itself, growing through its own use. Our habits of thought must be governed by fixed principles. One clear-cut, positive suggestion, made in good time, may frighten off 1,000 petty negative thoughts. The thing we repeat frequently enough in our mind comes to acquire undisputed authority. We should not seek to perform one great act of courage, but courageously perform all acts, however small, of our daily life. Pascal says, positive thoughts come from faith, negative thoughts from doubt. The right fear, joined to hope, because it is born of faith and the hope in God in whom we believe. The wrong joined to despair, because we fear the God in whom we have faith. Some fear to lose him, others fear to find him. Let us persist in our aim to think positively and do right, knowing that the true courage consists in long, persevering patience. Let us earnestly direct our thought toward the lofty and sublime. Above all, let us seek the best sources of inspiration, that the great thoughts of other men may become our thoughts, as that we may rise into the fullness of our rich inheritance.